Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees, for being here this evening in this holy, beautiful Sri Vrindavan Dham for our daily Bhagavad Gita class. This evening we are reading from the 13th chapter, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, text 8. It's a combined, there are 5 verses combined, 8 to 12, but I've been asked to just speak on the first 4 qualities that will be listed. So I will read only the first verse and the corresponding word for word, and then also the corresponding translation. Amānitvam, adambhitvam, ahiṁsā, kṣāntir, ārjavam, ācārya-upāsanam, śaucaṁ, sthairyam, ātma-vinigrahaḥ. Thank you. Amānitvam, humility. Adambhitvam, pridelessness. Ahiṁsā, nonviolence. kṣāntir, tolerance. Ārjavam, simplicity. Ācārya-upāsanam, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Śaucaṁ, cleanliness. Sthairyam, steadfastness. ātma-vinigrahaḥ, self-control. So we leave it at that. That covers the first verse. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification. Oh, sorry. You're supposed to repeat after me, is it? That's true. So I've just only given the words as given in the first verse, but all these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. I'll explain in a moment. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements, as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge, as described here, is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse, Mayi ananya-yogena bhakti avyabhicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. Yasyasti bhaktiya bhagavati akinchana savya gunais tatra samasate sura. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculative beyond this is nonsense. As for the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles, and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body. But actually, non-violence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people, so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is non-violence. Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlad, who, only 5 years old, was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlad tolerated him. So there may be many impediments to making advancement in spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination. So I'm stopping here. Om Aganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimate Gaura Govinda Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachari Sataine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right. It's been a little while since I gave a class, so I'm a little bit rusty, but I've got my notes. I like to study and take notes. So it's a very exciting verse. So many wonderful qualities are being described. So many beautiful points are being made. It's very instructive, especially for us devotees on this path of bhakti. And we can learn a lot. So the topic under discussion is the process of knowledge. So in the previous verse, the 24 elements, the material ingredients of the material world, and particularly the material body, was being described. But now, here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that this is not actually knowledge, because anything within the material world, especially the material body, is only temporary. So if we're only seeking for knowledge in this material sphere, we're actually missing the point. What we need to know, because material science is so advanced, they've so focused, on archaeology, on astronomy, on biology, geology. So many sciences are there whereby material scientists are trying to understand the workings of this world. However, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out this kind of knowledge doesn't save us from repeated birth and death. So there's no value, there's no meaning. The real problem of the material world is, and that's given in the next verse, in text 9, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, namely birth, death, disease, and old age. That knowledge which saves us from birth, death, and disease and old age is real knowledge, like that. So I've divided the class into two parts. I will speak first a little bit on the points that Srila Prabhupada is given here in the purport and try and elaborate. And then the second part, I try to speak to you something about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Rahasya. Because when Mataji first asked me if I would like to give a class just on these first 4 qualities, namely humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, something immediately came to my mind. What does that remind you of, these 4 qualities? Humility, there's a very famous verse that we all must know. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance. What does it remind you of? Trinada-bhisanichana, exactly. Mahaprabhu's teaching. So I feel also inspired to go in that line to speak a little bit something. So the single most important thing in this process of knowledge is to understand who is Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. He is the Supreme Ishvara. As he himself states earlier on in the 7th chapter, he says, everything rests on me, just like pearls are strung on a string. Nothing is superior to me, right? And then in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, all material and all spirit, I'm the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So there's so many evidences given to us to, first of all, to understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then in the previous verse, Mataji, I think 2 days back, she was explaining about the importance of parampara, how this process of knowledge is given down from Krishna in the bona fide parampara system, and why that is very important. So if we can understand the position of the Supreme Lord, if we can understand our position as jiva, namely that our eternal constitutional position is to be the servant of God, you see, then that puts everything in a very different perspective and a different paradigm than in the material world. In the material world, everybody thinks everything belongs to me and everything is meant for my enjoyment, which is ignorance. But in true knowledge, we can understand there's the Supreme Lord, He's the Master, and I'm His servant. And He's the enjoyer, and I'm to give enjoyment to Him. That is the real knowledge. That is the correct position. Then the perfection of that knowledge culminates, and Krishna Himself speaks that later in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where He says, Man mana bhavamad bhakto. So, in anything that we want to study, we need to know the goal. What is the perfection of that knowledge? So the perfection of that knowledge is that we can always think of Krishna and never forget Him, right? That is the perfection. And the culmination, the conclusion of that perfect knowledge is then to completely surrender to Krishna. Sarva dhamman parijyaja, like that. So this is the real process of knowledge. So Prabhupada has given the difference, what is not really knowledge and what is real knowledge. Because he explains the material destination is already there. We might try to make so many endeavors in the material world, but actually your destination is already assigned. And he gives the example of two men in Mumbai. One is poor, one is rich. The rich man, they're both living in Bombay, he's saying, but one is poor, one is rich. The rich man is doing nothing, just sitting in his AC office, giving orders. The other one is a poor man, he's also in Bombay, but he's running around like anything, working very hard to try and earn some money and make a living, like that. So they're both in Bombay, but they're having very different destinations. So, in other words, we shouldn't worry about our material life because that's already destined to us according to our karma. Plus, here in the material world, we're affected by our, by the three modes of material nature. So I've got, in support of that, Prabhupada gives a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 31st chapter, text 1, wherein the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself says, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of His work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. So according to your karma, your destiny is already given, like that. So this is just in support that material knowledge is not true knowledge. And also we need to understand, of course, that this human form of life is a rarely achieved birth. There's millions of species of life. Even just now all around us, we don't know what kind of viruses, COVID or not, are around us, right? And they will find their destination also. So we need to use this human form of life for the correct purpose. Namely, to understand, utilize it to understand the absolute truth. And sorry, please, I'm really a little bit out of practice, so I've had to mark all these slokas, because Prabhupada always says whatever you say you should back up with authority, right? So it's good to, it's a good exercise for me just to be reminded. And Srila Prabhupada gives these verses himself. He quotes, again, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, 18th verse, wherein it says, persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. So these verses were in support of teaching us not to aspire for material knowledge, like that. The most important thing is that if we can understand ourselves as jiva, jivatma, jiva souls, then that is actually real knowledge. And Prabhupada gives a quote from the Mundaka Upanishad, wherein it says, if one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of all controllers, one can understand everything else. So the focus is shifted from the material consciousness of seeing yourself in the center of all attention to the focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as we can make that shift, then our understanding of even the material world, the spiritual world, takes on a whole new dimension. However, all of this is only possible in the association of devotees. Particularly, we're coming to a very important word in the moment where Prabhupada says ācārya-upāsanam, accepting a bona fide spiritual master. So if we take the association of devotees, then we will come to the right kind of understanding. By associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukunda, is the all-in-all. So we need to find those persons who can understand that Mukunda is the all-in-all, the Lord is the all-in-all. One can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. In other words, the opposite to that is people might try and make their own independent endeavor, but here that's immediately cut right in the beginning. No, you need to be in the association of those who have knowledge of the Lord, and then you can also come to the right understanding. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing of them, one can immediately associate with the Lord. Not only do you get knowledge, you get realization, you get association with the Lord. So if we're speaking about the process of knowledge and wanting to reach the perfection, this is amazing. It's not just the theory or a scholarly understanding, but you're getting to experience, you're getting to associate with the Lord yourself directly. And that's what makes it so potent and so special and unique. So, and this is a long verse, it explains more. You can look it up yourself. And by that association and learning the correct knowledge about the Supreme Lord, automatically, as Prabhupada says in the purport, automatically all these good qualities develop, like humility, pridelessness, respect, tolerance, and so forth. Prabhupada, in the purport, he quotes from the Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12, where it says, all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. This needs to be understood more in depth. First of all right, I want to take up this path of bhakti, but I don't have to even think, all right, today I'm going to work really, really hard on humility. Tomorrow, next week, I'm going to try really, really hard for pridelessness. And the week after, I'm going to try like anything to be non-violent and very respectful to everyone. A devotee doesn't even have to meditate in that way, because it is said, if you follow this process of knowledge or bhakti under the correct guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, in devotional service, these qualities automatically become manifest. And we'll explain in the moment how that happens. And then the verse explains, but those who are not in the relationship of the Supreme Lord, who are not taking the right association, even they might think to endeavor for these qualities. Actually, they're just fooling themselves, because they're under the three modes, they're under their own mental speculation, and Prabhupada uses a very strong word. He says it's just nonsense. Now, he doesn't say it's a strong word, and it may come across confronting. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada's language may come across confronting. Nonsense is a heavy word. Hey, nonsense, right? It can be confronting, but it's not meant in a confronting way. Maybe sometimes he has to give a bit of a wake up, like, come on, that's nonsense. But it's not meant in a condescending way. It's meant in a realistic way. Don't be foolish. Don't fool yourself. You know, come to reality. Wake up. It's a reality check-up call, you see. That if you're not a devotee, if you're not in a relationship with the Supreme Lord, if you're not in association with devotees, then you're fooling yourself to try and endeavor for these qualities, because it's bound to fail like that. So we always need to understand Srila Prabhupada's language in the correct way. Because he explains in the purport, 20 items are being listed. We're only touching on the first 4 tonight. 20 items are being listed. And Prabhupada explained in the purport, unless they're in relationship to devotional service, they have no meaning. There's no value. And he gives an example just like Ravan. He had a city of gold, a whole city of gold. Nowadays we are hard to come by for ladies to even wear gold ornaments. Gold is very rare. We hardly see it, no? And here Ravan, he's such a powerful person. His whole city was made out of gold. Even when Hanuman jumped there, he first took a stroll and a flight around just to check it all out. Wow, look at that, you see? Very opulent. However, the whole city had absolutely no meaning because he rejected Ram. He rejected the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, it was unsustainable. It was destroyed. He lost everything because he couldn't see it in relationship to Ram. Prabhupada also gives the example, just like we have so many zeros. You can have a basket full of zeros, but there's no value. But if you have so many zeros and you just put the number 1 in front, then it becomes meaningful and there's value. So all of these qualities really only mean something in relationship to the Supreme Lord. Now he says, accepting a bona fide spiritual master in this process of knowledge is essential. Now this is a topic of Guru Tattva, and it's a big topic, but I won't go into this direction. But just simply mention, because it came up in the verse, that why, just few little points, why it is so essential. In Nectar of Devotion, actually, Prabhupada says it's crucial. This whole vast ocean of spiritual knowledge has no meaning unless we come to this point of surrendering to a bona fide spiritual master. Because the knowledge is acquired. It's a descending process. It's bestowed on us. It's a gift. It's not like the scholars or professors in the universities who think they can do so much research and so much hard work, and by the power of their brain and intelligence they can come to some understandings. The interesting thing is, in all my life, I've seen again and again, every year, every other day, they say, oh, actually what we knew about history, it's upturned again. Actually, we didn't know that. Astrologers have found something more. Archaeologists have discovered something more. And actually they lied about this and they didn't tell us about that, isn't it? And it's every year something new they're discovering. And to this day, nobody really knows the origin of mankind, the purpose of this universe, the extent of this universe, how it functions, how it's set up. They don't know. Devotees know, because they're in relationship with the Shastras and the Acharyas and the Mahajans. So this knowledge is to be acquired. It is a descending process. Prabhupada says here, the Acārya has to be worshipped. The single most important point here is because we need shelter. We followed material processes of knowledge because of ignorance, because we were in wrong shelter. We took the shelter in the wrong places. We trusted the media, our school education, our governments, but actually they're not real shelter because they're just conditioned souls themselves. How can one conditioned soul save another conditioned soul? It's impossible. So we need correct shelter. So Srila Prabhupada, I tried to find this song. It's by Narottam Das Thakur in Vaishnava Mahima. Prabhupada quotes this verse several times, so I thought to bring it up. Ashraya loya bhaje Krishna tari nahi dhyaje ara saba more akarana. Ashraya, this word ashraya, shelter, comes up here. And Narottam Das Thakur teaches that if you're under the care, if you're under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, then Krishna will never forsake you. You see, because the spiritual master is the via medium, is somebody who has seen the truth, who knows Krishna. So he can show us Krishna. So he can give us that shelter, and he can make sure that Krishna will accept us. Krishna himself is given that injunction, that rule. We cannot directly approach him. We have to go through the spiritual master. And of course, Prabhupada again and again quotes this famous verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, Tat Vijnanatam Sagarum Evabhigachet, which Prabhupada explains this word Evabhigachet means you must approach us. There's no way around it. You must, if you want to come to the correct knowledge. And you have to approach in a humble way. The word humility comes up a lot in our process. Tasmat gurum papadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam. If you want the highest knowledge, you have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master by initiation and approach him in a humble way. Because, and this is what I get excited about, which I feel devotees really need to understand. Because sometimes even in Krishna consciousness we know there's our endeavor and there's the Lord's mercy. But sometimes we get lost in the woods, with our endeavor. We think we make like a strong endeavor, but like now it's 45 degrees out there. To chant 16 rounds and work really hard, it's really tough, right? So our endeavor is very limited in so many ways, and we run into troubles and into difficulties. So what's the thing here? So why to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master is because not only does he give shelter, but he gives the empowerment. He will give you so many instructions. And this is really important to understand also about the glories of the holy name. If we take shelter of Guru and we take shelter of the holy name, they will empower us. They will give us the strength. It's 45 degrees, but hey, so what? I'm going to go to Bhagavad Gita class. Yay! So we can pat ourselves on the back, but actually that resolution, that resolute determination is a reciprocation that's coming to us. It's mercy that's coming to us because we are making the endeavor. So this is a really important point to understand, that even Krishna himself had to tell to Lord Brahma when he instructed him to create, to take care of the creation. Brahma is sitting there in the dark on the lotus flower, and he's kind of like, hello, how is that going to happen? What am I going to do? I don't know. And Krishna himself tells him, don't be depressed, don't be anxious about the execution of creation. What you're begging from me has already been granted before. That means because it's my wish, you're guaranteed to be successful because I want you to do this. So similarly, if we can understand that the Supreme Lord wants us to be successful in devotional service, and he's given us this process, we can't fail. It must come to success, you see? And that is why this process of knowledge is very important. To understand the Supreme, who is the Supreme Lord, to understand what is Jiva, and to understand that each and every one of us has an eternal, perfect, loving relationship with the Lord. Krishna is the only object of love, and we have an eternal, perfect, loving relationship with Him. Eternal. All relationships here in the material world, they're not so secure. So I'd like to stop here on the purport, a few points that I wanted to bring up, my immediate thoughts, but now to the qualities of humility, pridelessness, non-violence, and tolerance. As soon as I saw it, of course, I was thinking, wow, Shikshastakam, Trinarapi Sunichena, Taroi Vasahishnana, Amanina Manadina, Kirtaniya Sadahari, and I was really happy that this came to me because it's such a beautiful topic. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he explains, it's the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikshastakam, as what we know, as what we understand, is the only written work that left behind by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami tells it, gives it in the last chapter of Antya Leela, chapter 20, and he explains, after speaking about all the lots of ecstatic manifestations and symptoms and all these exhibitions of the highest prema, Krishna prema, he tells from that platform, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking this Shikshastakam. So it's not just a scholarly work again, not some thesis, some gyan. It's a direct manifestation from the Lord's heart through His mouth, come to us speaking with pure love, and to ignite this pure love in our heart, this love for Krishna. So in a book called, I've got this book has been with me for the last 30 years. There's newer versions of it available, of course. It's called Sri Bhajan Rahasya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's one of my favorite books because on the basis of Shikshastakam, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the progression of a sadhaka from Shraddha to Prem. And immediately in the beginning, he explains, and he corresponds it to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He says the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is made up of 8 couplets. Hare Krishna, like that. And these couplets, they correspond in turn to the 8 verses of the Shikshastakam. Not necessarily each couplet directly with each verse. I explained it in a minute. So we know the first verse in Shikshastakam, of course, is Cetodarpanamarjanam. So there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us, if please just take up this process of chanting Hare Krishna. It's the Yuga Dharma. I'm giving it to you, this process. It's the most effective, and it's actually the only way to achieve perfection, which means Krishna Prema in this Kali Yuga. And then he lists the 7 benedictions, 7 wonderful items that will be bestowed to you if you just take up this process. So this first verse of Shikshastakam relates to the first couplet, Hare Krishna, and to Shraddha. You know that procession from Shraddha to Prem. First Shraddha, then comes Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, Anatta Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, and Prema. This is the process, the steps coming from a platform of a sadhaka who has developed Shraddha. Yes, I understand. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, I'm the Jiva, I'm his servant, I accept this. That means Shraddha. And I understand that this process of bhakti will take me to the lotus feet of the Lord. So the first verse of Shikshastakam, Chetodāpanamajanam, is to establish this Shraddha. And Sankirtan Vijayate, Sri Sankirtan Kijay. Like that, at the end it says that in this age, the best form to achieve is this Harinam Sankirtan. Then the second verse explains that I've put all my potencies in my names, like Krishna and Govinda. But unfortunately, Duraivam, unfortunately, it's speaking now from the point of the sadhaka, unfortunately, I'm chanting with offenses. So I cannot get the full benefit of this Harinam Sankirtan. So this second verse in Shikshastakam takes us to Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, and Anatta Nivritti, 3 of them in one verse. So we've established sadha, we've understood, yes, Prabhupada says accepting the spiritual master is essential, all right, so I'm doing that. Now under the guidance of the spiritual master, I'm engaging in bhajan. I'm performing my devotional activities. And by performing these devotional services and activities and practices under his guidance, I'm now undergoing a process which is called Anatta Nivritti. My heart is now being purified and cleansed of all these anattas and misconceptions that have been in my heart since time immemorial, particularly this misidentification with the material body and the material world and so on. It's a big topic, Anatta Nivritti. We won't go there now because we're trying to come to the third verse, and that is Trinadapi Sunichena. So here in his Bhajan Rahasya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that now the sadhaka has come to the point of nishta. So to actually acquire these qualities like humility, pridelessness, non-violence or respect, tolerance, that is for quite an advanced sadhaka. So what does that mean? What level do we have to be on? You see? So nishta, of course, means firm faith. We've had that initial shraddha. Now we've undergone education and purification, and we are solidly fixed in our devotional practices. We've learned and about the 6 symptoms of surrender. Accepting only those things which are favorable, rejecting those things which are unfavorable, accepting the Lord as one's protector and master, approaching him with humility, fully surrendering to him, like that. We are not just theoretically appreciating those, we've actually practiced them. And we're situated in that full surrender now. We've been able to give up misidentification with the material body. In that, we've learned to become compassionate to other living beings, because we're not just seeing living beings in relationship to ourselves, we're seeing now all living beings in relationship to the Supreme Lord. Also, we've learned to give respect to all devotees, because we are seeing that Krishna is in the heart of all living beings. Actually, we're giving respect to all living beings, not just to devotees. And actually, in Srimad Bhagavatam, this mayada, or this respect, is explained, and mayada is translated as, a boundary or giving limits, which I found interesting. Respect means setting boundaries. Okay, this is appropriate behavior, this is inappropriate behavior. You're allowed to behave like this, but please don't overstep your boundaries. Now in the modern world, like the younger generation, they like to use this word boundaries. Mom, I had to set up my boundaries. You see, I had to put my foot down. Because people have forgotten the art of how to be respectful. So we have to set boundaries, we have to set limitations for our own protection, for everybody else's protection. So of course the immediate respect is for all living beings. In the material world, even in social life, we respect somebody who is civilized over somebody who is not civilized. We respect all authorities. Anybody that's in a special authority, I remember when I was a child in our village, the doctor, the lawyer, and the priest, they were the respected persons in the town. Whatever they said was the truth, and everybody respected and followed. Then, yes, we give respect to the learned, those that have good qualities, those that are priestly or those that are in the spiritual ashram, like a sannyasi or a brahmachari, like that. But the highest respect is given to bhakti, because bhakti is the highest goal of human pursuit, and it's not of this material world. It leads to the ultimate perfection of this knowledge. So to begin with, so Prabhupada said in the purport, when we can learn, even so before I was giving this verse, that these qualities we don't have to individually aspire for, that they automatically manifest. However, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has said, this list of qualities are given so we can check. You know, am I being humble? Was I behaving humble today? Was I puffed up, or was I disrespectful? Was I tolerant or intolerant? We have to make a daily check of these qualities, and thereby we can gauge if we're actually making progress. Now humility, to practice humility, when you come to this point of trinārapisu niccina, becomes actually very easy. You see, in the material world, the opposite is encouraged, pride. Pride is a good quality. It's applauded as a good quality. Oh, you did great. Oh, wow, you got that degree. You got this medal. Good for you. Wow, you can be proud. In the material world, everything is the opposite. What is religion is irreligion. What is irreligion is religion. Everything is back to front. Whereas in the spiritual world, humility is the highest quality, because the closer you come to God, the more your humility increases, because you understand your foolishness, you understand your position. First of all, I'm so tiny, I'm so insignificant. Second of all, oh dear Lord, I've been in Maya. I've completely disregarded you. I've turned my back on you. Please excuse me. So this humility is a natural development of practicing Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I'm destitute, I'm a rogue. Really, Lord, you are my master and I'm your servant. I've committed all sins, untold sins. You might say, oh, come on, Anuradha, I've not been such a bad person in this life. You know, I'm doing okay. I took birth in a good family and all of that. But we've been here millions of lifetimes. We've been in the body of a worm, the body of a pig. We've been maybe a butcher. Maybe we've been a king. Who knows what we've done? So there's not a sin that we didn't commit. Actually, we are drowning in this material ocean since time immemorial. Please, let me serve you, Lord. I'm your servant. Allow me to serve you, because only then will I be freed from my material desires. That's another thing. Anybody in the material world, you cannot satisfy your material desires. It's impossible. Like that. I'm an offender and I'm actually punishable. Please give me the punishment that you think is due me. That is humility. That is humility. Humility doesn't mean to be humiliated. In the material world, again, humility is often misunderstood, and that's why it's not a praised quality. People equate it to, being neurotic or having low self-esteem or like that, being in the corner and keeping your mouth shut. That's not humility. Humility is to have this attitude. So the acharyas are teaching us what is true humility. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he goes as far to say, let me be born even as a worm, but let it be in the house of a Vaishnava. That is humility. Be pleased with me, Lord. Because if you are not pleased, even if everybody else in this world is pleased, what's the value? You see? So, this in brief, very, very brief, is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is teaching in his Bhajan Rahasya, how by following this sloka and applying it to feel oneself lower than the straw in the street. If a list of all the names are made of everybody in this world, if a list is made of everyone in this world, my name will be last. This is the attitude of a Vaishnava. And it's a really nice exercise. You might think, oh, hang on a minute, Anuradha, if I do that, I'll get taken advantage of, I'll get abused, I'll be vulnerable, you see. But there's no fear. If I've experimented. And my Guru instructed us to develop this mentality. If a list is made of all the names, my name will be last. You see, and here the important thing is not how others will deal with you. Prabhupada says that in the purport, dishonor, honor. Never mind. We don't worry about that because we know we are not this body and it's bound to come. If somebody gives me honor, okay. Somebody gives me dishonor, okay. It's just karmic interaction. It has no meaning really. If some honor comes, I give it to Guru. Actually, all good belongs to him. If some dishonor comes, I'll just wear it like a garland around my neck. Because I'm doing my service to my Guru. And if I follow these instructions, like my name will be last, I will get the protection. I will get the pleasure of Guru. I'll get the empowerment of Guru. That's the secret, you see. So we have nothing to fear. And it's actually a very beautiful thing. So feeling oneself lower than the grass in the street, more tolerant than the tree. The tree is the epitome of an example of tolerance. He freely gives the fruit and the shade. Even if somebody comes with an axe to chop him down, he doesn't oppose, object, like that. So these instructions, and we should be ready to give all respects to others and not expect any respect for ourselves. Respect should be commanded, not demanded, like that. And actually, this Nishta platform means that somebody has come to the point of madhyam adhikari. It means he knows how to discriminate and how to give proper respect according to status. It means I understand the Supreme Lord. I understand his position. I understand my position. I understand those that are junior to me, and I will give compassion. They're also servants of Krishna, and I can help them. Those that are senior to me, I give worship. Those that are equal to me, I keep in friendship. And those that are envious, I keep a distance. I stay away from them, like that, because that's not favorable for my Krishna consciousness, you see. So this proper discrimination, this proper offering of respect has been established. And then, can you understand now what I'm trying to say? Automatically, these qualities of humility, pridelessness, non-violence, here it says non-violence, but we can also say respect. Prabhupada says in the purport, non-violence means to give somebody the correct knowledge. If you don't give people Krishna consciousness, you're being violent. That's what he said in the purport. And tolerance. Prabhupada clearly explains in many places, unless you chant Hare Krishna, unless you take shelter of this process, there's no way you can tolerate the rest of the day. And actually, if you look at it, humility you can't have without tolerance. Tolerance you can't have without being respectful. You can't be respectful unless you're non-violent. These qualities are all interdependent. You can't have one without the other. So they simultaneously manifest in one who has taken up this process of devotional service. So many more points could be said, but time is run out. Heavy tests will come. And actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's given himself the example of humility. He's the Lord himself, but he came in the mood of a devotee to teach. So he's the perfect Acharya because he's teaching by example. He's not just giving a theoretical understanding. And he himself practiced this quality of humility perfectly. When the sannyasis in Benares, they were speaking so many offensive things against him because he's just a sentimentalist dancing and singing in the street. And Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar Prabhu, they were very upset hearing these offensive things from the Mayavadi sannyasis. But however, there was this one Brahmana, he wanted Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please come to this meeting, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would never go to meet up with Mayavad. They're the greatest offenders because they want to be God, equated to God. So he would never go to their meetings. However, to please his devotees, because they were upset, because the devotee doesn't mind if dishonor is coming to me, but if dishonor is coming to the Lord's devotee or the Lord himself, then they're very upset. So they organized this meeting with these Mayavadi sannyasis, and just to teach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went there and he went to this place where you wash your feet. Then he sat down in that dirt near that considered dirty place where he just washed his feet. But he was so effulgent that even these Mayavadi sannyasis, they became intrigued. And the leader came over to see, and they could understand, oh, this is an extraordinary personality. And automatically, just by that association, humility came. You see, it even manifested in them. Bali Maharaj, he went through a heavy test, just coming back to that point of empowerment. And this test will be there for all of us. We will be tested, not so that God can feel better, ha ha ha, see how out of you are. No, it's not like that. The test is there to make us strong, to actually manifest these qualities. Because I was thinking about that. We've been in these lockdowns and isolation and blah, 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 boring, right? For so long now, since last year. And we tend to, and it can become a habit to just stay alone in your room and you don't see anybody for weeks, right? I mean, it was like that for me. And how do you know then you're manifesting these qualities? You can be in your room and you can be perfectly convinced, oh yes, I'm so humble, I'm so respectful, I'm so tolerant. You see? But actually, these qualities can only really show themselves in the association of devotees, and then more when Krishna puts a test. Then your heart really goes under the microscope. How much are we humble? How much are we respectful, tolerant, and without pride? So thank you so much for listening to me and giving me this opportunity of some little service. Please excuse my inadequacies. Like I said, it's been a little while since I gave a class because of these lockdowns and everything. But I hope that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy there was some inspiration there for you in your Krishna consciousness. And I don't know, we still have time for some questions maybe? Does anybody have a question or a comment? Yes?
When we see that these qualities develop themselves, then why the devotees, especially I've seen many senior devotees, they become hard-hearted?
Oh, well,
That is practical, because devotees should be a soft-hearted person, but when they become senior, they become more hard.
well, it's a very general statement that you're making there. You're making, which is dangerous. First of all, my answer to this is, when we are looking at these qualities, we're checking with ourselves. Never mind the other person next to me. I'm checking with my own heart. This is between me and my Guru and Krishna. What's happening in my heart, number one. And to say that all senior devotees become hard-hearted, that it's a little bit much. But you see, the thing is, I'm not the judge of that. It's not my lookout. I mean, if it is a senior person, then they know the Shastra, they know the process. If somehow or other my Krishna consciousness is affected by it, or I genuinely feel, oh, this person's Krishna consciousness is in danger, then I can take appropriate steps, like going to another senior devotee, or a god brother or god sister of this person, or in a humble way, I can approach and say, please excuse me, but I'm observing like this and like that, and I'm just concerned. And because you have to understand, also senior, you know, there are verses that say that it's impossible to know the mind of a Vaishnava. Prabhupada, you can say, wow, so hard-hearted, he's calling every dogs, hogs, camels and asses, you know, like he's speaking some strong things, doing some heavy things, you know, like that, rascal and like nonsense he's saying in this purport, you see. So what you are perceiving, I mean, what you're saying hard-hearted might just be your own perception. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. So if you are genuinely concerned, then you need to get assistance from somebody and in an appropriate way approach that person, maybe have a discussion. It is true that the Shastra also warns not to perform unnecessary austerities that can make us hard-hearted and like that. But we need to be careful about generalizations, and we need to always deal with respect. Yeah, you had a question, probably?
You mentioned that who are like envious, you should make a distance with them.
Yes.
But is it not like this we are disrespecting with them? Like we are not?
No, because it's a danger to your devotional service. Envious in this case means somebody who's not accepting the authority of the Supreme Lord. Envious in this case means somebody who doesn't appreciate the activities of devotees. So we don't want to deal with them, because not to endanger our devotional service, but also not to get them to commit further aparadhs. If somebody cannot accept, if they're not ready to accept that there is a Supreme God, that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that I need to serve Him, then better just let them be. You understand? Don't be a false hero, okay? Here, understand what means envy, and understand why it's better for yourself and maybe for the other person to be respectful from a distance. We can still pay our obeisances even in the mind, because Krishna is also in their heart, and we can say a prayer for them. We can go to Krishna Balaram, or this person is behaving in this way, it's very hurtful, it's not good for him also, but I don't want to approach because he'll speak so many nasty things. So please, Lord, you're in his heart, you kindly help, like that. Okay, then we can help, we can be compassionate, but not endanger ourselves or them any further. All right? More questions? Yeah?
Thank you very much for the class. My question is, you mentioned that our material destination is fixed.
Yes, Prabhupada is saying like that.
How about our spiritual destination? Is also predetermined, or it comes with endearment, or how does it happen?
Well, it's eternal. You are eternally a servant of Krishna. Right now you're just in an atmosphere where you've forgotten that. So this process of Krishna consciousness, or ceto-darpana-marjanam, is just a process to revive what you've forgotten. Actually, you have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. Eternal means always. But you've not acted on it, because you've made a conscious decision. No, I don't want to go this side, I want to go this side. I'm going to play with Maya, I think I'll be fine. All these warnings were there, no, you will suffer, this and that. No, I'm going to enjoy. So you've made a conscious decision to go to this side, and then the moment we come into this material world, we're covered by ignorance because of material desires, you see. So Krishna is eternal, the jiva is eternal, your relationship with Krishna is eternal. So now devotional service means reviving that eternal relationship. And hopefully getting out of this material entanglement once and for all. Krishna promises that in many, many places, especially in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Many times Krishna promises, once you come back to him and you're engaged again in your service to him, you'll never again come back to this material world. Karmically, your destination is preordained here because of your previous activities in the material world. What you've done previously, that's what's determined your destination. You understand? But in Krishna consciousness, that karma gets cut. Krishna takes your karma. You understand? Like that. More questions? Yes?
This verse speaks of knowledge. Knowledge is about spiritual knowledge.
Yes.
Sometimes Srila Prabhupada quoted Shakespeare. He also said Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. Let me just finish.
Yeah.
He also said from dust you are and the dust thou shalt be.
Yeah.
And eating the forbidden food according to the Bible, eating the forbidden food.
Yeah.
Then as in the Mayapur festival and they had this big billboard, whatever, Prabhupada is saying that reading any book other than our Krishna conscious literature can actually be detrimental.
Acha.
Can be detrimental to Krishna consciousness. So what is your experience like? Any self-help books outside we get like inspirational, motivational, we feel we are gaining some knowledge. And just to add to it, one last thing is like if we never went to school,
Yeah.
if I didn't ever read Devanagari or English,
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
how could we even read this?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so how do
I
we-
understand.
the outside thing and the
Yeah.
inside?
I understand your question, and his question is, on one side we're hearing that we should only get this knowledge, this spiritual knowledge from Srila Prabhupada's books, we should not read or hear anything else. However, sometimes we know that Srila Prabhupada even quotes Shakespeare or the Bible or other literatures, and so he's saying, if I didn't get material education, like learn Devanagari or English, I wouldn't then be able to sit here in the class for Bhagavad Gita. So he's trying to understand this word gyan actually, and this or knowledge. And this comes up in the Nectar of Devotion discussion when we are learning about anya-abhilashita sunyam, jnana kama anavitvam, anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. In that verse, this is a sloka given by Rupa Goswami, in which he teaches the process of pure devotional service, and he says, we need to give up karma and gyan. So gyan, but when we're speaking about giving up gyan, it means, I'm just speaking very brief here now, means any gyan that is detrimental to my process of bhakti. Knowledge, like if I can go to school and learn English and then I can study Srila Prabhupada's books, then obviously that gyan was helpful for my devotional service. In other words, like the whole discussion tonight, our goal is to reach Krishna through the process of devotional service. So we accept that which is favorable, we reject that which is unfavorable. If I read a self-help book, that's he's bringing up these things, if I read a self-help book and it helps me to appreciate Srila Prabhupada and what he's teaching and makes me more enthusiastic to apply myself then to the process and help others, maybe I might need to change my language for young people or whatever, then that's a good thing. Or I might want to read a gardening book or a cookbook or whatever because I need to do better service on a Hare Krishna farm or whatever, like that. So this takes a certain kind of maturity to be able to discriminate of that which is favorable and that which is unfavorable, and it takes honesty. It takes honesty. We have to, that's why again we have to act under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, because we can trick ourselves, because the material nature is such that we are filled with duplicity. Our mind is very wicked. So we need to be in constant check and balance system. So Krishna consciousness means a simple heart. That means honest. I have to be honest with myself. Am I reading this because I just really appreciate Deepak Chopra so much better because Prabhupada's books is just too philosophical to me? Do you know what I mean? And then I endanger my spiritual life by taking association of Mayavad philosophy. Well, that's terrible. Stay away. Shoot on sight, you know, that anatta. So you have to be able to develop honesty and a maturity within yourself. What is my motivation? If Prabhupada is quoting Shakespeare, I'm sure it's not just because he wants to show off his English knowledge of English literature or something, impress us in some way. No, he just knows that's what he's learned and it's applicable to a particular point, and like that, isn't it? We can trust Prabhupada implicitly with that. So similarly, we have to check within ourselves, what is my motivation? Does that answer?
Yes.
Yeah? So Gyan in of itself is not a bad thing, but we need the Gyan that is favorable for my Krishna consciousness. Okay?
You mentioned that 8 couplets of Hare Krishna Maha.
Yes, yes.
Related to those 8 steps.
Yes.
Is there a reference for it, or?
Yeah, you'll find it. That's why I brought the book along. If you can find this book, Bhajan Rahasya, it's all explained really nicely. It's the 8 couplets of the Maha Mantra, the 8 verses of Shikshastakam, and then the 8 meditations of the pastimes of the Lord throughout the day is given on a higher level. It's a very beautiful book to study. Yeah, it's probably here. Yeah. Yeah, go and have a Bhajan Rahasya. It's a beautiful meditation, and thank you so much for being here this evening, and I wish you all a pleasant evening, and see you again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudeva ki jai.